But let's talk about. You do have a very impressive resume. You've recorded with a lot of folks. You've jammed with a lot of icons.
Yeah.
Maybe you could share some of the the early experiences and who you played with. I saw that you were with Jewel very early in her career
on.
when she was breaking in.
Yeah, 1997 I started playing with Jewel. She was on the cover of Time magazine, and people were just figuring out what an amazing singer she was and talent. And we did that was a lot of trial by fire too, because we did a lot of stuff. There was a song called Foolish Games that was a pretty big hit at the time, and it was in a Batman movie, and it was a big song. So it was just piano and vocal. She didn't even play guitar. So we did all the TV shows with just the two of us, just put piano and vocal, The Tonight Show and Letterman and all of them. So that was my first real big gig. Go get it right, And I had about 2 days to learn it all. And
wow.
Yeah, I got a call on a Wednesday, and I went to work on Friday.
Wow.
So I ran to the record store and bought a record and came home and played it for 48 hours straight. And then went to New York to the rehearsal,
I give you credit. That's that was your shot.
That was my shot.
Yeah.
And I knew it. I recognized it too. As can't blow this. But really, all the big jobs that I got early on, they all came from this producer, Jim Scott, who he's an LA producer, engineer. It's just an amazing guy. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Wilco, and he did the Grace Potter record, and he's just an amazing cat.
Did he do your two solo?
No, that was actually Ben Elliott in New Jersey did my solo records.
Okay, so
but we are recording our new one now, and we just went out to LA and recorded 6 songs with Jim. So,
cool.
And it is my 30th record with Jim.
Wow.
And we've always talked about him recording me, but it's like I'm on Jersey, he's in California, the band, I was getting the schedules together. Finally worked out. So we went out and cut 6 songs. We're going to go back in February and cut 4 more. But he's an amazing guy, and all the big gigs that I've gotten really came through him. And this was because, Neil Casale is a great singer-songwriter from New Jersey who now plays guitar in Chris Robinson Brotherhood, right? So Neil was the first guy to pull me out of a cover band. I was in an Allman Brothers tribute kind of thing, and he saw me play, and he said, "You got to come with me to LA and make this record." So he introduced me to Jim, and we did all this great stuff with Neil, a couple of great records. And Jim had, he went on and was doing other jobs. Like he got a call, Ryan Adams, back when Ryan was doing Whiskey Town was the name of the project. So that was the first time Jim called me outside of a Neil thing and said, "Hey man, I need you to come in and do this record, and this kid's really good, this is going to be big stuff, and I need you to come in and serve it up." And I was young and terrified, and I didn't have Neil and my usual crew of guys. I was kind of on my own, And we made this record called Stranger's Almanac, which is an amazing record, and still to this day probably one of the most important records that I played on as a session guy, because it was the first alt country, it kind of changed the way people looked at country music, And Ryan obviously is an amazing talent. So since then, Jim, there's an old saying that producers hate to make new friends, right?
Sure.
Once they know that you're the guy, and you're going to come in and serve it up and show up on time and do all the right things and do what they tell you, they'll use you over and over and over again. So
right, but you're not a one-trick pony, and that's you span quite and I want to talk about that a little later, about the multi-genres that you're very adept in.
Yeah, I try to spread that as far as I can.
And you do it well.
Thank you.
Well, that's great. It sounds like things were meant to be, and you recognized. I hate to call it an opportunity, but certainly a door opens, and you were ready to walk through it and be prepared for what was on the other side.
Absolutely, I knew I was going into show business.
Yeah,
I did. I knew that.
Yeah,
and I know it's not show friends, it's show business.
Right.
And you got to serve it up, and you got to recognize when you're in that moment. You can't be the next day and you screwed it up and you look back and go, "Oh, that was the moment." You got to see it coming. So show business is tough, and that was you know, all these cats that I would run into early on, like Bob Glaub and Don Heffington and Greg Leese and all these guys who were killer players and been doing sessions for years. And Bob played on Donna Summer records and Doors records and you name it, you know, played Jackson Browne, The Pretender. They all told me the same thing when I was 19 or 20 years old. They said, man, it's a tough business. It's a really tough business. They all had that to say on separate occasions.
Yeah.
And I recognized that they weren't lying.
Yes. I've used the phrase harsh mistress, you know, but
Yeah.
you do it because you love it.
You do it because you don't have a choice.
Yeah, it's just something that you know, like John Lee Hooker said, it's in them and it's got to come out. And,
That's it.
You know,
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. So we have you kind of had your major entree with Jewel. You hook up with Jim, the producer, who obviously also produced a wide range of artists and recognized your ability to serve up what was needed.
Indeed.
And then, you know, and I don't want to make it too linear, but
Yeah.
Obviously you were a founding member of Robert Randolph's band.
Right.
And he's a Jersey guy.
Jersey guy.
And you know, that's an interesting thing. You know, the whole sacred steel thing. Was he really non-secular before
Yes.
you guys started doing that stuff?
Yes. When I first met Robert, he was only playing in the church, and he had a regular job. I think he worked at a law firm or something. And Gary Waldman is a great manager in the music business, another Jersey guy, and he managed Jim Scott. And he called me and he told me about this pedal steel player. He said, this guy is like nothing you've ever heard. You got to hear him. I want to get him into the studio. I want to put a band together. I want to do the whole thing. So Gary had called me with a lot of ideas, and I'd heard of a lot of ideas. And I went, that sounds cool, man. Yeah, hit me up, send me something. I don't know. And I went on about my day. And 2 weeks later, he called and he said, listen, man, I'm not kidding. You got to hear this cat. And I went, yeah, well, okay, send me something and we'll figure it out and da-da-da-da-da. Next week he calls me and he just holds the phone up. And I heard the Brady Bunch theme song being played with the tone of Dwayne Allman. I dropped the phone. I'd never heard anything like it. I said, make it happen. How's Monday? Let's go. So went and picked Robert up, loaded the pedal steel into the back of my minivan, and we went to Brooklyn to Eric Roscoe Amble's studio. He had a great studio in Brooklyn. And we set up a Wurlitzer and an organ and a pedal steel, and he had his cousin Danielle fly in from Ohio and play some bass. And that was the first family band jam, was in a little basement studio in Brooklyn. And we got through with that, and Gary said, listen, you know, we're going to book some gigs at the Lakeside Lounge, which was Eric's place, and it was on Avenue B in New York City. It held 30 or 40 people tops, you know. So we went in on a Monday night and played to, I don't know, maybe a dozen or 18 people or something like that. And before you know it, we were on stage opening for Medeski Martin & Wood at the Bowery or Irving Plaza or one of those big places. And it was the fast track. Mm-hmm. He was on the fast track. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the first gigs we played, and there's certainly footage of it and pictures out there. The first gigs we played, Robert would sit in the chair the entire show. He wore a suit, even to like the Village gigs, you know, in the city. He wore a suit and tie. Danielle sat in a chair. There was no jumping around and you know, they just played the music. They just played the instruments.
Yeah.
And from there, as the audiences grew bigger and as the energy grew bigger, he came out of his shell, and you know, it didn't take long before it was just an explosive musical happening. I would just try to hold on for dear life.
Wow.
You know, I really did. I took a Greg Allman approach to the gig, because even though it was just a four-piece, there was so much fireworks going on. The steel, he's killing it on the steel. Danielle, the bass player, is playing like this, and he's playing 6 and 7 and 8 string basses. God, I don't even know, you know, and playing melodies and thumping the line and singing a falsetto harmony while doing it. Marcus, just an incredible drummer with the church chops and energy, and he would lean into his kit, you know. So it was just like fireworks, fireworks, fireworks. What am I going to do, right? So I took Greg's kind of approach to it and just tried to glue it together, you know. I have actually been accused of underplaying in that band, and I will disagree with that till the end of time, because I feel like somebody had to just put two fingers down and
see this, and this ties into what you were saying earlier. You got to know what to do. You know, if it was a very simple thing, you would have filled it up more. But when you've got Robert Randolph, who's just wailing on this thing, and with his cousin on bass, you were the kind of the glue. You had to provide a bed for them.
Yeah.
And you know, you bring up Greg Allman, who recently passed, and you know, I was just thinking, first of all, the Allman Brothers band changed my life. I met Dwayne, I sat at his feet. I play a lot of slide guitar.
Amazing.
And was very fortunate to see him play with them 5 times.
Amazing.
And you know, when the last weekend of the Fillmore, we got at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
That's how far back I go. You know, so you have this guy Greg, who's got this older brother Dwayne, who was just a very powerful individual. And by the way, Greg was quite a bit taller than Dwayne.
Yeah. Right.
Although Dwayne, you know, Dwayne, his hands were the size of a catcher's mitt. It was amazing when I shook his hand.
Yeah,
but so you've got this guy Greg, who was the last guy to join the band.
Right.
And you know, they had the whole band ready, and Greg's got to walk in front of these people, and he was a shy guy. Very underrated. This is my point, though. Very underrated Hammond player.
100%.
Because you know, they would do regardless of what song he was going to do. Even on Mountain Jam, it doesn't matter what the song was. Dwayne or Dickie would take the first epic solo, up and down and up and down and around the bend and back again, and there had to and Greg would just take the most. It was a song within a song, beautifully played, and then the next guitar player would take over. He was a phenomenal vocalist.
Phenomenal.
Tremendous songwriter,
yes,
and a great interpreter of other people's tunes. Jackson Browne to this day says that his version of These Days is way better than his, and I would agree.
I would agree too.
But so you obviously you've tuned into this guy who's in the middle of a maelstrom, and know when to hold him and when to fold him.
Yeah, and he played that role exactly. And I've had this moment where somebody said, like, you know, maybe Fillmore East, live at Fillmore East, there's just one lick that Dwayne plays where his guitar sounds different. Just for that 4-bar phrase or whatever. Like, don't get me wrong, his tone before that, gangbusters, a 10 out of 10. That's for this 4 bars, it changes to, like, you know, otherworldly. But he said, why does the guitar sound so good in that 4 bars? It's because what's Greg's playing. That's why. Because Greg is framing it on the Hammond organ with 2 fingers and just a couple drawbars pulled out and a slow Leslie. And it's what he's playing underneath that makes the other guitar tone possible.
Well, it's very atmospheric, which brings me to another one of your abilities, is that in addition to having the notes and the groove and the rhythm, you know, you can work that Hammond, and you bring in a lot. I mean, there's a lot of the drawbars and all these things that affect the tone on the Hammond, and you are not afraid to use them. No. And you do run the gamut. In one, there was one. I wish I could remember the name of it, but there was this one particular thing I saw. It was kind of taken over your left shoulder, and you were playing, and you really tuned into a lot of different sounds.
Right.
And it got at one point it got church-like, which was that something that you feel like you got from the Robert experience?
Absolutely.
Because
I learned a lot in that couple of years, man. I learned a lot.
The Hammond is jazzy, bluesy. You know, they used it on soap operas back in the day.
Sure.
Maybe, you know, at church.
Yep.
And roller rink.
Roller rink.
And I've heard you. I've also heard you, like, when you really light it up.
Absolutely.
I'm hearing the roller rink.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Thank you.
Tone is so important.
It is, and mine is evolves throughout the song. So, and it's something that I just kind of learned as I learned the instrument, where I just wanted the sound to evolve from the verse to the chorus. I don't think it should have been the same drawbar setting in the verse to the chorus. And here comes the bridge. What do I want to do with that? Well, I want that to be different too. And now it's my solo time. Oh, well, watch this. You know what I mean? So the sound can always evolve to kind of, you know, do what the song is doing. I'm not one of those guys who would set it and forget it, as they say. Set the drawbars, play the whole song, see it at the end. You know, there's so much going on there. It's such an expressive instrument that I fell in love with that part of it, and it sets me apart, I guess, I hope, from a lot of players, because you can kind of hear me coming. You can kind of hear my sound, you know. I've been told people can hear, like, oh, I know that's Ginty on that record, just because of hearing the drawbar setting and the way the organ is set, you know.
Well, you know, we could chat for a long time. You're a fascinating individual, and you've got a great history, and you have so much ahead of you. We're looking very forward to hearing you and your band tonight. I guess I have to wrap it up, but I did want to say for the folks that not only on the course of one of John's records do you hear different genres from song to song, but within the song you will hear genres, and I got the largest kick out of, we were joking earlier about this tune Fredo that you did with Redman.
Yeah.
You've got a killer band, and it starts off jazzy, and then it, you know, it really covers, the groove is tremendous, covers a lot of ground. You folks are in for a treat. John, all the best to you, sir.
What a pleasure talking with you, man. Thank you.
Likewise, man.
I want to switch seats and interview you about seeing Dwayne now. That's like cool, man. That's great.
But we'll look forward, and you know, you're going to interview or introduce the band rather probably tonight.
Oh, absolutely,
right?
yeah.
So I'll leave that for John. But you folks are in for a treat, and thank you for carrying the torch, and not only carrying a torch, but bringing it very now as well. It's contemporary, but you've got all the history with it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I really do. It's great talking with you.
Likewise.
This was fun. Let's rock it.
Yeah, man.
All right. Sounds good.